You are being poisoned right now. And the label says natural, not by a stranger, not by an accident, by a system that figured out decades ago that your health is worth less to them than your next purchase. Stick with me for the next 20 minutes, because by the end of this, you will never look at a grocery store the same way again. Let's start with something you already suspect, but nobody ever fully explained to you. Why does junk food taste so unbelievably good? Not pretty good, not satisfying. I mean the kind of good where you finish the bag and you're already thinking about the next one. That's not an accident. That's not your lack of willpower either. That was engineered. There are food scientists, real people with real lab coats and real PhDs, whose entire job is to find what's called the bliss point. That's the exact ratio of sugar, salt, and fat that lights up your brain's reward system harder than almost anything else in your daily life. Harder, some researchers argue, than certain drugs light up the same pathways. Let that sink in for a second. You didn't fail at moderation. You went up against a multi-billion-dollar industry that spent 50 years perfecting your surrender. But that's just the beginning. Because sugar isn't even the scary part. The scary part is where they hide it. Think about your last trip to the store. You bought bread. Just bread, right? Innocent, right? Check the label next time. There's a good chance it has sugar in it. Not obviously sweet bread, regular sandwich bread. Pasta sauce, sugar. Salad dressing, the healthy choice you reach for instead of mayo, often loaded with sugar. Even some brands of chicken broth have added sugar. You are consuming sugar in places you were never trained to look for it, and that's exactly the point. If it were only in candy and soda, you'd be on guard. But when it's hiding inside your healthy salad dressing, your guard never goes up at all. And here's where it gets darker. Because sugar has dozens of names on an ingredient label, and most of them don't sound like sugar at all. High fructose corn syrup, you probably know that one. But what about dextrose, maltose, rice syrup, cane juice, barley malt, fruit juice concentrate? Every single one of those is sugar wearing a costume. Food companies aren't lying to you exactly. Everything on that label is technically true. But they are counting on the fact that you won't recognize 7 different names for the same thing, all stacked one after another. So no single one appears high enough on the list to alarm you. That's not cooking. That's a magic trick. And you're the audience. Now stay with me, because we haven't even gotten to the part that should really bother you. Sugar is one problem, but sugar has a partner in crime. And this partner is even sneakier. It's called additives. And I don't mean preservatives to keep bread fresh. I mean an entire universe of lab-made chemicals whose only job is to make cheap ingredients taste, look, and feel like something expensive and fresh. Ever wonder how a strawberry-flavored snack can taste exactly like strawberry without containing a single actual strawberry? That's not magic, that's chemistry, built in a lab, designed specifically to trick the sensors on your tongue. Take a step back with me for a second, because this next part is where things get genuinely uncomfortable. Some of these additives have been linked, in study after study, to behavioral changes in children, hyperactivity, attention issues, mood swings. Some artificial dyes that are still legal and common on American shelves have already been banned or require warning labels in parts of Europe. Same product, same company sometimes, different rules depending on which side of the ocean you're standing on. Ask yourself why that is. If a color additive is dangerous enough to require a warning label in one country, why is it perfectly legal? No warning at all, sitting on a shelf in your local store. That's not a coincidence. That's a difference in regulation, in lobbying power, in how much money certain industries have spent, making sure the rules stay loose right here at home. I want you to picture something with me for a second. Picture a giant assembly line. On one end, cheap corn, cheap soy, cheap wheat, grown at massive industrial scale, subsidized so heavily that they end up cheaper than fruits and vegetables ever could be. On the other end of that assembly line, bright, colorful, perfectly shelf-stable products that never spoil, never look wrong, and never stop tasting exactly the same no matter when or where you buy them. In between those two ends sits an entire hidden industry of chemists, flavor engineers, and marketing teams whose only mission is turning the cheapest possible raw material into something your brain cannot resist. That is the real food industry. Not farms, not kitchens. A factory built to be irresistible. And you want to know the part that made me the most upset when I first learned it? They knew. They have known for decades. Internal documents from some of the biggest sugar and food companies, revealed later through lawsuits and investigative journalism, show executives were aware of health risks tied to sugar and processed ingredients as far back as the 1960s and 70s. Instead of warning the public, some of these companies quietly funded research to shift the blame elsewhere, famously pointing fingers at dietary fat instead of sugar, steering an entire generation of health advice in the wrong direction for decades. You grew up hearing fat is the enemy. Meanwhile, sugar was sitting quietly in the background, largely protected from that same level of scrutiny for years. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's documented history, uncovered through real investigations that most people never hear about because it doesn't fit neatly into a 30-second commercial. Now, let's bring this back to you, because I'm not telling you any of this just to make you angry, though you're allowed to be angry. I'm telling you this because once you understand the game, you can finally stop losing at it. Here's the first thing that changes everything. Read ingredient labels from the back, not the front. The front of the package is marketing. Natural, made with real fruit, low fat. Those phrases have almost no legal definition holding them accountable. The back is where the truth lives. If you see a sugar-sounding word in the first 3 ingredients, or 5 different sugar names scattered throughout the whole list, that product is built to hook you, not nourish you. Second thing, watch for ingredient lists that read like a chemistry exam. If you can't pronounce it, if it sounds like it belongs in a lab instead of a kitchen, that's usually your signal. Real food spoils. Real food changes color, texture, smell over time. If something can sit on a shelf for 18 months and look identical on day 1 and day 500, ask yourself what's keeping it that fresh. Third, and this one surprises people, fruit juice is not the health food it's marketed as. A glass of orange juice can carry nearly as much sugar as a can of soda, just without the fiber that would normally slow down how fast that sugar hits your bloodstream. Whole fruit? Yes. Juice? Be careful. The industry loves putting a picture of a fresh orange on the label of something that behaves in your body a lot more like candy. But here's where I want to flip the entire conversation, because complaining about the problem without giving you a way out would be pointless and honestly kind of cruel. You do not need to become perfect. You do not need to throw out your pantry today and eat only kale for the rest of your life. That's not realistic. And frankly, that kind of extreme swing is exactly what makes most people quit within 2 weeks. What actually works is something much simpler, much less dramatic, and much more sustainable. It's called crowding out instead of cutting out. Instead of trying to eliminate everything processed overnight, you start adding real food back in first. A real vegetable next to your usual dinner. Real fruit, instead of the flavored yogurt cup loaded with the sugar names we just talked about. Cooking 1 more meal at home this week than you did last week. That's it. That one shift, done consistently, does more for your long-term health than any extreme detox ever will, because it's the version you can actually keep doing for years, not days. And here's a fact that I think will genuinely surprise you, because most people assume eating clean has to be expensive, complicated, or bland. It doesn't. Some of the most flavorful, satisfying meals in the world come from simple, whole ingredients, cooked with intention instead of chemistry. Think about traditional home cooking from almost any culture around the world. Dishes built for generations on real vegetables, real proteins, real grains, seasoned with actual herbs and spices instead of lab-designed flavor compounds. That food isn't bland. It's often more flavorful than anything in a package because it doesn't need 40 ingredients to trick your tongue. It only needs a few good ones, treated with care. That's actually the whole reason I started making the kind of food I share with you. Not to lecture anyone about giving up every treat forever. Life's too short for that, and honestly, I still enjoy a treat myself sometimes. But there's a real difference between choosing a treat with your eyes open and being manipulated into overconsumption without ever realizing what happened. One of those is a choice, the other one is a trap. And now that you know how the trap works, you get to decide every single time you shop, whether you're walking into it or walking around it. So here's what I want you to do. Starting with your very next grocery trip, pick just 3 items you buy regularly. Just 3. Flip them over. Read the ingredient list from the back like we talked about. Count the sugar names. Look for the ingredients you can't pronounce. You don't have to change anything yet. Just look, because awareness is the very first step, and once you actually see it clearly, you can never fully unsee it again. This isn't about fear. It's about power. For decades, the food industry counted on you not knowing, not looking, not asking questions. Every single time you read a label now, every time you choose real food over a manufactured imitation, you are taking a small piece of that power back for yourself. And multiplied over months and years, those small choices are exactly what separates people who feel tired, foggy, and stuck from people who feel sharp, strong, and in control of their own plate. You deserve to eat food that nourishes you, not food that was engineered in a lab specifically to keep you coming back for more. You deserve to know what's actually in your meals, not a marketing slogan printed in bright letters on the front of a box. And now you do know. That knowledge is yours to keep, and no company can take it back from you. If this opened your eyes even a little, do me a favor and share it with someone in your life who still thinks natural on a label actually means something. Drop a comment and tell me the most surprising sugar name you found hiding in something you thought was healthy. I read every single one. And if you want to see exactly what real, simple, honestly made food looks like, stick around, because that's exactly what I'm about to show you next.